That's where like consciousness is supposed to be, and that's for meditation most interesting. What I can see in my system is like if you're having a rational thought, or if you like visualizing something, or if you like being creative. And that's, for my first experiments, it's kind of enough. I mean, I don't want to insert any electrodes in the middle of the brain. That's maybe in the future. But it would work theoretically. I mean, people do that, and then like with a more advanced technique, like those tubes you go into, and then you can see, they can show you certain pictures and see if you're having a emotional response or not. But not with my low-cost setup. So then let's talk about the hardware. It's relatively easy. There's usually an amplification board that just amplifies stuff, and then some other board that turns it into digital information. This is the classical Open EEG, if you're interested in it. We have some at NoiseBridge. But then there's also a SMD, smaller version that combines both boards into one. That's what I'm using, what's right over there. So it's based on open source software. That means anyone who wants to do it can do it. It's about $200 to $300 in hardware, and takes about a week maybe to build it. Those are different prototype of the headsets. So let's look at the flow of the brainwaves. So everything starts in your mind, in your head. Then millions, billions of neurons fire. Then you get this collective brainwaves, millivolt ranges on your scalp. And I place the silver electrodes. They capture this voltage. And then you have a noise filter. So you take out stuff like your body is like an antenna. So you don't want like this radio frequency. So basically, I'm taking everything out except like low frequencies from 2 to maybe 80 hertz or something. That's done first. And you amplify it. I mean, if you're interested, you can look at like circuit schematics, amplification, operation amplifiers, filters. Theoretically, you can see them here. Then there's a microcontroller that makes it a digital signal. And eventually it gets to a USB or Bluetooth serial port, so there's just data flowing in a serial way. And then eventually it's a TCP network stream, so it's just something like if you go to a web page, you just send stuff over any network. That's very flexible, so you could be, I like the system because you can use any kind of software, any kind of system to work with this data. It's just a TCP stream, any programming language will pick it up. So let's come to the software. Yeah, it's all based on open source software and stuff I came up with to combine them. So there's this thing called Neuroserver. That's the program that takes the data from the hardware and makes this TCP stream. And then there's Brainwave. It's the software that does signal processing and other softwares. It's one way of doing neurofeedback actually. You can have many different ways. Like you can also have like a fire burning that gets larger and smaller. You can have certain visualizations. That's a simple way. For my first experiment, that was to try to configure the system in a way that makes the brain synchronize both brain hemispheres. Like many spiritual meditation schools, like they say, that's what you want to be doing. They focus on some kind of third eye in the middle of the head. Well, scientifically, that's just like the corpus callosum. So it connects both hemispheres. So what happens if you had some kind of machine that rewards you when your both hemispheres are more harmonious? And that's what this does. So you can see the raw signal over here of the two channels, left and right hemisphere. Then it gets filtered through a bandpass filters and shows how much better alpha and theta waves you have. And here is the full frequency spectrum, Fourier transformation. So it goes from here about 5 hertz up to 20 hertz. That's the same here, but this is for left and this is for right hemisphere. And then here, those lines, the yellow line, it's some kind of metric I came up with, signal processing calculations, that kind of shows if it's high, it shows you're like more focused on your outside, you're actively doing something. And if it's low, that means like you're relaxed and in a meditative state. So the yellow line is for the left hemisphere, the green is for the right hemisphere. So the idea here is like to make those lines somehow exhibit patterns that resemble each other. Like here, for example, or you can see like the right hemisphere is starting something. That's what I usually interpreted it. The right hemisphere started some kind of thought or conscious thing, and then the left hemisphere goes with it. So usually, like people will try it in maybe in a few minutes, it's total chaos. Those lines are just total random, total chaos. And then if you look at it for a few minutes, like 10 or 20 minutes, usually it takes the people, you can see patterns emerging.
Is there a correlation between those two that look very similar on the right?
What do you mean correlation?
Like, would one side of the brain have, affect the other to produce a similar...
Yeah, I mean, that's theory I come up with to explain these things, but at least you can see there are correlated patterns. And sometimes I can see, like, if I have a rational thought, there will be first like a yellow spike, and then if it also excites my creativity, then there will be a green spike. So that's a good idea. So I can see good ideas, but then sometimes if it's a bad idea, it will just be a yellow spike and no response. I mean, if you're an artist, you can turn the thing around. You can see, you can draw something and see if it makes a spike in the right hemisphere, and then reflect upon it, see if it also excites the logic mind. Whatever, that's interpretations, many applications, but this system is just showing it right now. And if you have similar lines, it means in a broad way, the right and left hemisphere in a general way are more like in a synchronous state. And that actually means if you have two brain areas that are oscillating at the same frequency, you will have more interconnections between them. So that stimulates the corpus callosum, and it stays that way. Like I did this, and usually when I get to this state, I do some kind of mental games and like logic games, and I can see I do a lot better. So I think it enhances creativity and intelligence.
What sort of time frame are we looking at for that blue one, blue graph?
Blue graph?
Yeah, the one at the top right, the two lines. What sort of scale of time is that?
What do you mean? Which one?
Yeah, that one.
The long one with the green and yellow lines? How much of a time frame?
It's usually about 10 seconds. You will see in a second when I start the live demo.
Andreas, so you give an instruction to concentrate on trying to bring these together?
Well, I think it can be. You can do that, like if you are very advanced in hypnosis. Sometimes I do it, like of course I tell people like close your eyes, breathe deeply, imagine some kind of beautiful nature stuff. But I want to design the system in a certain way that it's not necessary, because theoretically it's not necessary, because it's how you reward yourself, how you give the feedback. So I could be, like the brain is always oscillating, a little bit up and a little bit down. So whatever it's randomly, at the beginning it's randomly going in the right direction a little bit, and whatever it's going in the right direction, the system will reward you by making an explosion or showing a nice picture or playing a nice music. And that immediately goes into the reward center, and the brain says, hey, cool, go more into it, go more into it. And so my experiments show you basically put on the headphones, because of the binaural beats and certain tones it generates, look at the visualization and just relax, and your brain will go into any state you configure it into. I mean, it takes 20 minutes to do it once, and then like psychology people studied it, if you do it 4 times, 20 minutes, you just have this new mental state you always can go into. So yeah, let's start it up and do a live demo. It probably does more than anything I could say.
Andreas, are you going to need somebody to put in it to be the first guinea pig volunteer?
Yeah, people can try it in a moment. I just want to. I'm sure this is a recording of my Brainwave yesterday night.
Oh
and,
man!
I can be sure it works. Like if you start setting it up, it takes some time. So I can be still talking about it a little bit, and then people can try it. I would suggest. So here you see it. You can also hear this tone. That's a binaural beat. So if you're sitting in the middle, like I probably can hear it. Well, usually people put on headphones, and then it's a very intense sound. You have there are the binaural beats. I can make them move. And there are the sounds the program generates. So that's a very primitive way. I have it set up right now. It's just making noises depending on left and right hemisphere. But it's for people who want to close their eyes. So they still have some kind of feedback what's going on by these tones.
You had a pretty good night last night. Yeah, I see a lot of synchronicity.
Yeah, I was trying to impress you guys, and so sometimes I get it quite good.
What does that feel like? To have this.
How can you describe that? I mean, how does it feel to be in a deep meditation and to feel connected with all of the universe?
Is that what it feels like?
I mean, you probably know.
That's it?
The guy I talked about.
I experience many things, but I'm curious what you experience.
So the guy here, right here, is usually the person I give as a best example, because I tried it with about 50 people, and he is like a Zen meditation, 10 or 15 years experience, and he's like, look at this, that's my brain. I was just partying and dancing around. but if he puts it on, maybe later he can like completely shut out